All right, boys and girls, today's lesson is actually we have kind of two lessons because this one I hope is going to be very easy for you comparing and ordering decimals. So remember in math when I compare and order, how I find the similarities and the differences is with greater than, less than, or equal to, right? So that's what we're going to take a look at with our decimals. So getting this set up, y'all know me and this tool don't get along, so we'll see if it'll work out. So to compare decimals, you can use a number line or a place value. Same thing whenever we're comparing whole numbers, right? I can still use a number line or place value whenever I compare my whole numbers. So whenever I have that number line, let's go ahead and let's put greater than, less than, or equal to right there to let us know what we're dealing with. So whenever I use that number line with my whole numbers, no matter what numbers I put on here, whether it's 0, 1, 2, or if it was 3, 4, 5, my larger numbers are always more to the right. My smaller numbers are towards the left. So that kind of gives us an idea on our number line. Then whenever we use place value, which you don't even really realize you use place value, we stack our numbers. Like if I asked you, you do not have to write this, but just watch. If I asked you which one's bigger, 1,357 or 4,352, you could stack them. There's my ones place, there's my tens, hundreds, thousands. And we start with our greatest place value and say, okay, which one's bigger? 4 is bigger, so there's the bigger number. That's what we're doing today. It should be as simple as finding the bigger number. So let's take a look at this. Example 1. At recess, Austin and his friends decided to have 2 races. I hope you're underlining and circling with me. One was, all right, how do you say that decimal? There's one number behind it. One was 2/10 of a mile, and the other was 4/10 of a mile. Which race was longer? So they show you first how to read a number line. I don't want you drawing number lines. They give them to you great. Like they've given us this one. We have my 0, we have my 1 whole. And each of these are right behind the decimal, so those are my tenths. Now, looking at this number line, if I graph my 2/10, which is right here, and I graph my 4/10 right here, which one is closer to the bigger end? My 4/10. So that means my 4/10 is the bigger decimal, since it is to the right of 2/10. Numbers on the left are smaller, right? Now, the easiest way to do this is just to stack these up and line up the decimals. So let me get us moved up. Let's look down here. Now, you're not always going to have a place value chart, but we've discussed this before. That's okay, because all you have to do is stack your numbers. We don't have to draw this, and I really don't want you to draw that, because we ain't got time for that. All you have to do is write your numbers out. So I had 2/10 and I had 4/10. But in order to use place value, you've got to make sure, find that decimal and line it up. And if you line up the decimal, all your other place values are going to line up. So just like with whole numbers, we start with our greatest place value, which is the ones place. And we say, which one's bigger? My 0 here or my 0 here? Well, both of those are the same. So then just like with whole numbers, I move next door and I say, okay, which one's bigger? And it's not a trick question. Is 2 bigger or is 4 bigger? Well, 4 is the bigger number, so that is my number. That is the bigger decimal. 4/10 is my bigger decimal because 4/10 is longer than 2/10. And you can think of it as your fractions. Don't I have more if I have 4/10? Yes. So the longer race was the one that was 4/10 of a mile. And it says right here, this is very important. Notice that you can only compare 4/10 and 2/10 because they refer to the same whole. They are right for fractions when we think of them as fractions, right? So let's flip over to the back. I'm getting a little used to these tools, but I gotta wait. Okay, here we go. Now, of course, with comparing, which one's bigger, which one's smaller, comes putting them in order. So on this one, it tells us, I want you to read this in your head and see if you say these decimals correctly. So order 1500ths, 3800ths, and 3/10 from greatest to least. Please pay attention to that. If you do it backwards, I cannot give you credit. Now, technically, they shouldn't have put that there because I really wish you could have filled that in, because I want you to see that I have 1500ths, there it is. I have my 3800ths, there it is. And I have my 3/10. But if we're thinking of these as fractions, 1500ths, 3800ths, 3/10, they're not like fractions. So I really can't compare them. So I have to change my 3/10 because these are 100. I've got to change my denominators to match, right? There's my 100, there's my 100. So this is the only one that doesn't match, and changing it to a denominator of 100 is easy because I follow my golden rule and I multiply the bottom by 10 and the top by 10. So then I get 30/100ths, which means in this empty spot right here, all I have to do is put my 0 that they put. So you really don't even have to worry with these fractions as long as you'll do what I said in the first problem and line up these decimals. And just understand that if this is empty right here, it's really like there's a 0 because there's nothing there. So I won't make you line these up again. So let's look. We're ordering from greatest to least. So we're going to start with the greatest place value. Hopefully that's what you said. I have 0, 0, and 0. Those are all even. Then whenever I go to my next place value, I have 1, 3, and 3. Well, which one sticks out? That one. This one sticks out as being the smallest because it's 1. So I figured out that. This one I know is going to be my least. So let's go ahead and mark that. Now, because this 3 and this 3 are the same, I now have to move out to my next place value. Whether you put your 0 or not, you're asking yourself which one is bigger, 8 or nothing. And hopefully we know that this is going to be my greatest because 8 is bigger than 0. And so this one's going to come in the middle. So now let's take our decimals and let's put them in order from greatest to least. I hope I can make mine fit. Probably not though. So 3800ths. Then I'm not going to write 30/100ths. I'm going to write 3/10 because that was what was in my original problem. And then last, I'm going to have my little bitty 1500ths. Whoops, didn't put my comma. So now I have those decimals in order. It's as easy as lining up the decimals. We do not want to miss these. So let me scroll down to here. And let's practice comparing these. Now, I don't make you stack these unless you start missing a lot of them. But you do have to do what I call the finger test, which you can't see my fingers, so I'm going to have to show you with my dots. So what you do is I'm going to take and find my decimal with my index finger on each hand. So here's we're going to do right hand red, left hand orange. So here's my right finger, my left index finger. It's on the decimal. So when I look at the decimal and I look at my greatest place value, which is right here, I can see that they're both the same. So then that means I move over to the next place value and I see which one's bigger. Well, which one's bigger? The 2 or the 6? Hopefully you answered 6 because 2/10 is less than 6/10. Okay, so again, finger test on this one. There's my decimal. There's my decimal, each hand. Look at the greatest place value, which is that, ones place. They're both the same. Then move to the next place value. Well, for this one, my next place value is the tenths here and the tenths here. Well, which one's bigger? Sorry, I'm trying to get my mouse to move. My 4 or my 0? I know there's a 4 out here, but I haven't made it that 4 yet. I'm just looking at this 4, just looking at this 0. Yep, that 4 is bigger. So 4 tenths is bigger than 4 hundredths. And you can think of it like your dimes here and your pennies. Whoops, pennies here. All right. Give these two a try really quickly, and I'll jump back in and hopefully we get the same answers. Do the finger test. Give you time to do them on your own. Make sure you're doing them. All right, I did my finger test. I'll look at my greatest place value. Both of those are the same. I'll look right behind it. I have 6 here. I have 6 here. Okay, so that's the same. So I got to go out another place value. Well, I don't have a place value there. There's not a number. I have a 0 there. So which one's bigger? My nothing or my 0? Guess what? Hopefully we said these are equal to each other because this is 6 tenths and this is 60 hundredths. And hopefully from the previous lessons, we've learned that those two are equivalent. Looking at the next one, doing my finger test. Look at the greatest place value, which is my ones down here. They're both the same, so I'm going to move out to my tenths place. Well, which one's bigger, 5 or 7? I know I have a 7 here, but it doesn't matter because I'm going each place value at a time. Since this 7 is the bigger number, bigger than 5, it's got to eat this 7. So here are my answers for the top part. Now, I do want us to stack them whenever we put them in order because there's a lot going on here. So mine's going to be super big, but yours does not have to be this big. We're ordering these from greatest to least. Remember that, biggest to smallest. So number 5, let's stack these up, and we're lining up our decimals. If you line up your decimals, the rest of the place values will fall into place. So we start with my greatest place value here. Those are all zeros, so that doesn't help me. Then I go to my next place value, which is a 2, a 0, and a 4. Well, these are all different, so I can go ahead and figure out which one's the biggest and which one's the smallest. So I have 2, 0, and 4. Well, of course, 4 is the biggest number, so this is my biggest decimal, 4 tenths. I've used that one. Now let's look. Go back to that same place value. Which one's bigger, 2 or 0? My 2 is bigger, so 2 tenths has to come first. And then my smallest one is going to be 2 hundredths. Sorry, just trying to fit it in. And you can think of these as dimes and pennies if that helps. But I do want you to stack them up if you have to order them. On this last one, stack it up. See if you can figure this out. Make sure your decimals lined up. I do want you to stack it up. All right, what place value do I start with? The biggest, which is my ones place. All those are the same, so that doesn't help. I mark through that. Then I look at my next place value, which is a 5 in the tenths, a 3 in the tenths, and a 4 in the tenths. All of these are different numbers, so I can figure this out in this place value spot in the tenths. So my largest number out of 5, 3, and 4 is 5. So this is my biggest decimal, 51 hundredths. Now I go back to that same place value because they were different numbers. Which one's bigger, 3 or 4? 4 is bigger. So 46 hundredths. And then my smallest is the 34 hundredths. And that's how we compare in order.